Welcome to this episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview relatives of famous people. My famous relative, Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. She's my sister. And on this episode, it's going to be really fun because our guest is the daughter of a man who crosses multiple generations in television as Deputy Barney Fife and also as Mr. Furley on Three's Company. Today we have Karen Knott, the daughter of Don Knott. The incredible Mr. Limpet and the Apple Dumpling Gang. Her dad was an amazing comedic actor, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about Karen's story. And if you happen to be looking for the perfect family vacation, go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com and check out the Grand Strand. It's 60 miles of amazing coastline, golf courses, restaurants, putt-putt courses, amazing family vacation spot, and you can learn more about that at visitmyrtlebeach.com.
Relatively Famous Podcast with Chip White.
Karen, welcome to Relatively Famous. I'm super excited to have you on today.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here and to see you.
Yeah, I know we've been playing a little bit of phone tag, but I'm glad that it's all worked out and you're here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, your dad, we'll talk a little bit about your dad, but then because I really like to find out about who the person is, but for the sake of our viewers who I want to be sure they Google Don Knott, tell me a little bit about your dad and life with Don growing up.
Well, my dad, he was a great dad. First of all, I want to just say that. He was a wonderful father. I had a great family, father, mother, and brother, too. And, of course, our lives revolved around the Andy Griffith Show. From the time I was 5 until about, 10. And then he left the show. But let's talk about those years. We got to go on the set of the Andy Griffith Show. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time on the set. He didn't want me. I was already goo-goo gaga over acting, and he could see that, and he was a little, he didn't want me to get too excited about that. So he didn't promote that. But we did go on the set. We had a lot of fun. I got to talk to Ronnie Howard, and I do talk about that in my show, Tied Up in Knots and other shows. What that was like. What it was like was he was just a very natural, real kid, but he wasn't like any other kid. He was a working kid, and he had a lot of responsibility. So he seemed older than he was, I would say.
Yeah, I read the book, The Boys, where he and Clint would kind of tell sometimes the same story, but from different perspectives. And it was very interesting to see their true point of views and about their father and about the years on Andy Griffith and stuff. And like you're saying, he definitely had that old soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. And he was acting from the time he was 3. So, that's really all he knew at that point in his family life.
And you said you were bitten by the acting bug. Tell me about your career and I think, did you stand-up comedy also? Do I get that right?
Yeah, I do. I do stand-up comedy. In fact, I just got back from Branson, Missouri. I have a new show with a partner named Paul May, and we're called Mayhem and Knots. And we've been working together for about 6 years now. We've done shows in churches in the Midwest, and now we're up to real stages, which is pretty exciting. So I talk about my father, and I talk about, and it was interesting because he had me on, and he was interviewing me in front of the audience, and he asked me, well, or somebody in the audience asked me, what was your dad really like? And I said, well, he was not at all like Barney Fife, except that he was intense, isn't intense about things, but he was not excitable, and he didn't, I always tell him this, that he had 2 role models in acting. One was Stan Laurel of Oliver, Laurel and Hardy. And Stan Laurel had all of these expressions, and so I think he got that part of his character from Stan Laurel because he really studied him. Even his mother used to take him to the movies, the picture shows. It was only silent movies then, and so he studied Stan Laurel a lot. And then later he also studied Buster Keaton, who was the opposite. Buster Keaton was a deadpan hardly ever moved his face or expression. So his own personal humor was more like Buster Keaton, where he would just have this deadpan expression and say something really wry and funny. So it's like having two comedians in one.
Now, I know that I don't think that he never really considered himself a stand-up comic, but more of a comedic actor. I think that, like when he did his
Correct.
variety show,
Yes.
he kind of struggled because he goes, I'm not a comedian.
That's right.
I'm an actor.
Yeah, he really wasn't comfortable as himself being on camera, or being on stage. He needed to have a character to play and to be comfortable and to be live in that creative world. But he tried it. He did try stand up a little bit, but he never really cared for it.
Now, he started as a ventriloquist, right? Did he teach you
Yes.
ventriloquism? I can even say it, ventriloquism.
No, by that time he was completely over that. He really didn't like it that much. I mean, he that was his way of getting into the business, he thought, because he saw Edgar Bergen heard him on the radio and then later on TV. And so he mimicked that. And then from that, he got into the Army as a ventriloquist in the Army show. And so that's how his career really got started, was entertaining in front of troops. But the dummy was the one getting all the attention. So he didn't like that. So he got rid of the dummy.
Well, sometimes it helps to get rid of the dummy.
Yeah.
When you do stand up, what is your style? If I'm trying to think, where do you kind of take your comedic path?
Well, thank you for asking. That's a great question. I'm still finding my path, actually. And I have a little bit of that same shyness my father had about just being Karen in front of an audience. I'm not quite sure who that Karen is, but defining that Karen is what I'm really going through right now. And that is an interesting process. And I actually do talk about my father in my comedy act, and all the different, phases of our relationship, where he really didn't want me to go into show business. And then I overcame that. And then he was, a different path about it. And so I talk about that. And so that's kind of like the most me when I'm up there. But then I also do characters. I have a librarian character because I actually was a librarian. So one of the careers that he thought would be good for me was to be a librarian instead of, I'll have to whisper all my jokes.
That's interesting advice for your child, honey. I think you should be a librarian. Yeah.
Exactly, and of course, you have to have a master's degree to be a librarian. So that's a major commitment. But I did. I went through the course, and I'm really proud to say I got through the whole course in just 25 years. Kidding, but
there's your comedy right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was not. I didn't really like being quiet in the library. Nowadays, libraries aren't as quiet as they used to be.
No, they're not. It's a lot of computers, and there's AV in there, and it's, the books are almost secondary in a library these days.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that was, I ended up being a librarian in the colleges. I didn't be a college librarian, which was a lot more interesting for me.
What are some of the college? Where did you work?
Well, I worked at PCC, which is Pasadena Community College, Glendale Community College, Harbor Community College. I even worked at Pepperdine, though, in the graduate library for a while. So mostly it was a community college librarian. And the community colleges are great. I really think people overlook them as possibilities, but they're great.
Yeah, there's some great ones here in San Antonio. The Alamo College has a bunch of them kind of combined. It's a great way to get in the door. I probably should have done that because I didn't last very long in college.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I just use my aspects of my life in my stand up, and I also develop other characters. So I do like characters a lot. I get that from my dad too.
Now, do you write jokes, or are you more a storyteller? Tell me,
Yeah, I do tell stories. I do like telling stories. That is a good part of my act. And I also write jokes. And sometimes I'll hire somebody to write, jokes for me if I'm having trouble in an area. And I think most stand-up comedians do, have somebody they hire once in a while now anyway. Um, so and I study them. And one person that really influenced me lately is Leanne Morgan. And she is a Southerner who has become huge right now. And I think that's really interesting because I've traveled a lot in doing my Tied Up in Knot show, which is the full 90-minute one-woman show about growing up with my dad and our lives. Um, I've been booked all through the Midwest, in Amish country, in very small towns and farming communities, and it's all pretty much the same. The audiences really relate to it, and it's pretty exciting.
Well, your dad was very relatable in his career because, he was an actor before Andy Griffith. Of course, Andy Griffith put him in the stratosphere, and Barney Fife is loved by everyone. He went on to do some fun movies, The Incredible Mr. Limpet, The Apple Dumpling Gang. He proved himself as a great actor. And then he comes into a whole new generation with Three's Company as Mr. Furley. So I think that they have so many stories to tell.
And that was very exciting when he got on Three's Company. And a lot of people, what I call the hardcore Barney Fife fans, don't like Three's Company because it's I don't know, it's kind of silly or something, but it brought him into a whole new generation of fans. A lot of people had, a lot of people always watch the Andy Griffith Show, but then there are people who stopped watching. And they just went on to watch whatever was currently on TV. So he wasn't getting recognized that much. And then all of a sudden he was again. People in their 30s were coming up to him, "Hey, Mr. Furley." And that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, there was, not long after I had moved to L.A., there was a restaurant on Sunset, kind of in the V, Maribel's, I think is what it was called. And I saw him having dinner, and they said,
"That's right, Mirabelle's." Yeah,
he used to love to eat there. Yeah. And I saw me, and I regretted never going up and saying hi. But because of my sister, I don't like to bother people at restaurants. Right? It's out of respect. But I was like, oh man, that's Don Knott. I was so excited to see him.
Yeah, that was always a fun. And my father, he always liked to go to the same restaurant. Like he would go. The Mirabelle's was one. He would stay with the same restaurant for about 3 years, and he just felt more comfortable. And like after he got to know the wait staff and things, and they knew what he liked and didn't like, and also he just was really, he wanted to feel at home in a place where people weren't gawking at him. But I always used to. My brother and I had this little game where we would watch. Once we sat down, we would kind of look around the restaurant, and we'd see people notice him, and they, and their heads would come together. They're having a little conference, and the conference was, should we go over or shouldn't we go over? And then we'd kind of make a bet. My brother and I was like, what do you think they're going to do? I think they're going to go over. Yeah. Okay. So then we'd watch, and either they'd go over or they wouldn't go over. But whenever they'd come over, I would say go over, come over, because we were sitting with him. They would come over, and they'd be so shy, "Mr. Knott." He'd just give this big old smile and be like, "Oh wow," he's so friendly.
That's right.
They didn't realize that he liked that. He liked being recognized. He didn't like being bugged. Like enough is enough kind of thing. But he liked being recognized.
Yeah, I think that's part of the point of going into the profession that you went in is you want to be in the public and you want to be admired. And like you were saying, I still do this with my sister today when we're in restaurants or something. You'll look around and see. And then you'll see people, and finally, after we've eaten or something, I'll go, "Do you want a photo?" And they're like, "Do you mind?" And she's super kind about it. Too bad your dad wasn't around during the cell phone day, man. He would be social media guru.
Yeah, it's amazing how that has brought careers all over, new careers to people overnight. That would have. Yeah, he would have enjoyed that. One thing he didn't like was a lot of these cameras had flashes, flash bulbs, and he had macular degeneration, so that really bothered his eyes. But he rarely ever turned the photos down, even though it bothered his eyes.
I didn't know my father had macular. Man, that's a tough one to see someone kind of be so independent and then
It was
suddenly.
it was very tough. Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
life
Well,
like
he
for
managed to keep his independence, but it was a distraction, you know.
when he started developing it? Did he depend on you and your brother more, or what was life like for you as your
Well,
dad aged?
He was married. He was married 3 times. He was married to his third wife by that time, Francie. And so she helped him. I don't know exactly what she did, but she was very helpful. But I just knew that he was really struggling with it, and especially when he first got it and had to have the shots in the eye and all that stuff. And oh gosh, he didn't even really talk about it very much. He really kind of kept it to himself. But I knew that he was struggling and really suffering with it. And then it got to a point where it was a little more manageable. But one really bad thing that happened was he started losing work because he was starting to turn down work because he couldn't see the scripts and he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to do the role. But then eventually he got Francie and he got help, and she was reading him his lines so he could learn his lines with her, and some other techniques that he learned where he could get by. And so by that time the offers had stopped coming, which was really rare for my dad. He always was having offers of some kind. But good fortune was Andy Griffith at that point had the hit show Matlock. And Andy reached out to Dad and got him on the show. So because of Andy Griffith, he was able to break through that stalemate. You know, once in this business, once something like that happens and they find out something about you, and it's really hard to get back in the game. You know,
Yeah.
They just hold that against you for so long. But because Andy got him on Matlock, he was back in the world again, and he started getting offers.
They had a true friendship, and I know that we had Dixie Griffith on on a recent episode, and talks about the Mayberry Effect and the Mayberry days. My friend produced the Mayberry Effect, and I watched that movie. Man, it's true. It takes you to a place that just doesn't exist anymore. Do you enjoy being a part of that? Is it fun to connect with fans, or does it feel like just too?
Oh, very much. I love it. I really do. And I think we all love it. And that's why we have a community now of all of the sons and daughters and or co-workers or people that were close to the show or just fans. We all join together at these festivals and we have a great time. We entertain. And we also socialize with the fans sometimes, and then people like Ronnie Shell will come. You know, he's like 90 now, and he's got all kinds of problems, but he still comes and he still performs. And and it gives us a chance to really hang out with the fans too, because they're so, they're not like annoying fans. They're like fans that are really into the stuff, and they know what's going on, and they're very sophisticated about the stuff. So it's fun to hang out with them.
Now, when you travel and perform, are there specific cities or towns that you really enjoy going to, or that really stand out? And there's some it's like, ooh, that last trip wasn't that great there. I hope it's better this time.
Yeah, there's always those both highs and lows about the towns. But for me, I usually don't end up staying in a town long enough to really explore. So I'm kind of more or less limited to architecture, and the how beautiful the town is from the outside. So I do get very interested in that. And in my book, Tied Up in Knots, which I wrote in 2021, I talked about how being a part of this has made me really appreciate how great small towns are. Like they never went away, People, I kind of have the impression small towns just stopped existing, and that's so far from the truth. And the small towns, people like, okay, let's say Dave Chappelle, I think is one. They'll become famous and they'll come back and they'll bring the sophistication that they learn back to the small town and help their towns get better and bigger, And that happens a lot. And so the small towns of today there's some really extraordinary towns out there.
Yeah, I love getting off the highway and traveling and going exploring smaller towns. I mean, the town I grew up in is no longer a small town, but growing up, we actually called it our Mayberry because it was very much like that. You knew everyone and everyone watched out for you now. And it's progress. It's the beach. People want to live by the beach. It's not the same, it's still home. And
what's the name of your town?
North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We're just outside of Myrtle Beach.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that does sound like a nice town. Well, what's interesting too is that I grew up in Glendale. My father was making the Andy Griffith Show, and he moved out here. And he was raised in West Virginia, which has surrounded by mountains, the Appalachian Mountains. So when he came out here, he was looking for a place to live that wasn't too far from the Desilu Studios, and he ended up in Glendale, which has a mountain range all around it. And it's a very kind of secluded place, and it definitely had that small town feel. So it kind of felt like we were living in Mayberry, And then what's interesting too is that in all the years now that's gone by, the town is still like it was, but now it's Armenian people living there. So it's kept its integrity, it's kept its physical beauty, and all of that. And it's a small town, but it's just a different group of people.
Yeah, and I had some friends that actually live in Glendale, and we used to, when I lived in L.A., with Glendale, Pasadena, all that were smaller towns, and they had little downtowns and stuff. Of course, now they're all just L.A. But it was fun to go see, it had that feeling. I had friends who would grow up there and go, oh yeah, we had the same kind of feeling you did. We just had L.A. 5 miles down the road. Now, Karen, I don't do a lot of research, so if I ask something stupid, forgive me. Your brother.
Yeah, that's the neat thing about living in a city like Los Angeles. What you want to know about my brother?
Yeah. Is he still, I hate to say this, is he still with you? Do you guys communicate, spend a lot of time together? Again,
yeah,
I stick my foot in my mouth a lot, so.
He's 3 years younger. Well, he's 3 years younger, and so we've... No. That's fine. No, my brother and I, we've always been close. Even though our lives took a very different turn, I stuck with show business. He was never interested in show business. He's an engineer, a very successful one. He lives up in Palo Alto, and he's great man, great guy. And so what I love about my brother is he'll toy we played with when we were really small kids. He's so into remembering that nostalgia, but he's also he's got his own family too, and he's a very successful engineer, and he's great. So yeah, we really have a good relationship, very very close.
Now, when you said you reminisce, does he kind of use the Knott's name and people go, are you related to, because he's not in the business? Does it throw people off? Or do you guys kind of talk about the humor in because Knott's is not a, no pun intended.
Yeah. well, he never liked that people, saying, fawning over him, his being the son of Don Knott. He never liked that. And so when he got into this current job, he sort of did everything he could to so that people wouldn't even figure it out, right? But now that he's older, he's happy because he looks more like my dad, and he's happy about it. So he's kind of come full circle in a way,
Absolutely.
He's always been very proud about it, and of course we love that legacy.
Well, this right here was my father, and the more I tried not to be my father, the more I became my father. So I can relate to you, brother, on that. What?
Mm-hmm. That's right. I think it's even more true for guys.
Yeah, because I think the daughters tend to obviously usually favor more the mother. What was your mother like?
Mm-hmm. My mother, she was a wonderful mother. She was very, very ladylike, and they met in college, West Virginia University, and she was the daughter of a pastor, and she had this great sense of humor, which is just really funny. She was petite, only 5'2", and beautiful, but the kind of beautiful like 1950s, like Donna Reed, like real clean cut beauty. She never tried to be glamorous, and she couldn't wear fancy clothes. She kept everything very tasteful, but she was just a lot of fun, and she loved classical music, and without hearing classical music, she always had it on, and it was like her soul lived in that music. And she was great. And then she got Alzheimer's later, and I'd go see her in the home. And she still was just lively, just a little spitfire. Even though her words weren't always making sense, she was still getting a lot of joy out of life.
Now, we're getting close to the time, because I know we're on a tight budget. Tight time frame. What's the one question I didn't ask you that you wish I would ask?
Right.
What? Are you there?
Well, okay. I don't really think that way, but I guess, maybe you want to know about Tim Conway and the movies and stuff. Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
We don't have a very good connection, but Tim Conway was a huge part of my dad's life. And it was really like a second win when he started getting those movies with Tim Conway, because Tim Conway was an improv genius, whereas my dad was more thoughtful and deliberate about his comedy and just the way he thought. But, my dad used to get kind of down in the dumps, like especially when they go on location and make movies. My dad, he was very uncomfortable being out there in the wilderness, so to speak. And Tim would bring him around and just get him laughing. Like they would be driving to a set on location in the middle of nowhere. And my dad would be going like, look at those cows. I hate those cows. Brown cows, how depressing. And Tim would start making fun of the cows. And then Dad would start laughing. And then he'd get him back, back into good humor. So they were great friends.
I could see, because I love those movies as when I was younger. Even as a late teenager, I was watching them and enjoying them. And Tim Conway's always, his humor's been phenomenal. One kind of crazy last question. What color was your childhood?
What color? It was black and white. I'm kidding. It was a very robust childhood. It was a lot of yes, it was TV and film and Dad's career, but then it was also my mother, and then we had this really great kids in this neighborhood that we lived in Glendale. Just tons of kids everywhere. Everywhere you go, you see a kid somewhere. And so I had a blast living there. It was just, it was very down home. The houses were nice, but the people were down to earth. And I walked to school. I actually walked, and my brother and we walked 2 miles. We walked a mile to school and a mile home. It's like, you say, well, we walked a mile to school every day, but we did too. It was great.
That's funny. Okay. One more time, as you go, where can fans find your comedy, find your acts? Give us a quick rundown of where they can find you.
Yes, KarenKnotts.com is my website, and you can go to shows and you see what shows I've got coming up, or there are interviews. There's stuff about my book. There's a little background, and you'll see when you go to KarenKnotts.com, you can click on everything that you want to look at. It's a pretty basic website. No frills, really.
Well, we'll have it in the show notes so people can click on it. Karen, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to spend 30 minutes with us.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you for contacting me.
Karen, thank you so much for being on today. I am a huge fan of your dad's, and I look forward to seeing your comedy when I'm out on the road. I'm going to look you up. I want to thank you, the viewer, the listener, for being here. Without you, we would not have a podcast. I humbly appreciate your time. I hope that you will share all the videos, all the links. Hope you'll visit us at relativelyfamous.net and share, like, comment, and review. We would appreciate that. I want to thank our sponsor, visitmyrtlebeach.com. You heard Karen and I talking a little bit about visitmyrtlebeach.com and about going to Myrtle Beach. Great family vacation, great deep sea fishing, scuba diving, surfing, golf, mini golf, and if you happen to travel with an autistic child or a sensory sensitive child, you can learn more about going to Myrtle Beach at Traveling the Spectrum on Peacock, and also more about that at visitmyrtlebeach.com. I want to thank Nelco Media, our production company. I want to thank Nelco Comics for the very cool comic book location. If you're looking for a unusual comic or you want to update your collection, check out Nelco Comics in San Antonio. And if you happen to be related to someone famous or know someone related to someone famous, I am always looking for guests, and you can reach out to me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com, podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. Thank you.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.